Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about a Saturn return in a natal chart. Now, a Saturn return is when Saturn in transit returns to the precise point of the person's natal Saturn position. So, for example, if Saturn was, say, at 18 degrees 12 minutes of arc in Gemini at birth, when it hits that exact point, 18 degrees 12 minutes of arc in Gemini again, that would be considered the exact, I guess you could say, the exact Saturn return, or precise point of the return. Now, a Saturn return occurs approximately every 29.5 years. Most people will experience 2 Saturn returns, some 3, and then on rare occurrences 4. It can signify significant life-changing decisions, strong assessment and evaluation of one's lives may figure prominently during this period. The person may very well discard what is frivolous, or we could say superfluous at this time, and really make the decisions that will strongly be as far as something significant, will maybe direct his or herself towards something which the person will be most productive in their life. And at least that is what the intention, I believe, is during this return, making those choices, those decisions, which at least the intention is to be one that would be advantageous and beneficial, mostly for the person. Now, the first Saturn return can indicate that point where we could say maybe that commencement of maturation begins, that beginning phase. This is where this person may discard their whimsical, capricious side to some degree and begin at least the beginning phase of maturation. Now, when the second one comes, this could very well be that culmination of maturation. This is the time where the person really can establish that stronger maturity. Now, if the person does happen to be around for the third one, and the person would be around maybe not quite 90, but not far from it, years old, well, this would be a period where the person may represents a time of attaining strong wisdom, discipline, and just really becoming very sagacious, like the wise older person, for example. So now, when we look at Saturn returns, the exact nature of it is going to vary, because it depends on the sign and the house of Saturn during this time when it makes that return. So let me give you an example. I'll use me as an example for a Saturn return. Well, my first Saturn return, as far as the exact precise position, it occurred on April 30th, 2000. And that was, at that time, Taurus was at 19 degrees and 8 minutes of arc. Now, interestingly enough, before that, which was 3 weeks, I began working third shift. I became Mr. Nocturnal. I was doing night stalking. Now, at this point in time, that was a fairly good decision, I think, because what I was trying to do, I was trying to find something where I was going to augment my earning ability and make more money. And it's no shocker that, okay, it's in Taurus, which is the sign associated with making money. When this, during this time, when I had Saturn conjoining my natal Saturn, well, that was in the 12th house, and the 12th house is the house of seclusion, and this indicated a time where I was emphasizing that laborious work in seclusion, because it was in Taurus, the sign of the hard worker, and also with Saturn and you had that in the 12th house. So I think that played a strong role in making that decision. Unfortunately, during that time, as it was getting closer to like 21 degrees, I was getting at least a long inconjunct aspect from that transiting Saturn over to my natal Jupiter, and Jupiter in Libra in the 6th house of work. And I think I believe I more likely than not exacerbated a problem that I had with my lower back, and Libra can be connected with that. So, and especially the fact that this was made, this inconjunct was made to to Jupiter in the 6th house. So anyway, the thing, and like I stated before, it all depends on person to person, and it's going to depend on where your Saturn is by sign and by house. And anyway, one other example I want to give before I head out is that many of you may have heard of revered NBA star, or former NBA star, Michael Jordan. Now, Michael Jordan, you know, most of you know, is a legendary NBA pro basketball player. But I think what happened was his Saturn return occurred in 1992, and it occurred at a time where the Bulls with Michael Jordan, they were coming down the home stretch of the 1992 NBA regular season. And I believe, I mean, I don't know this 100%, but because Jordan's Saturn return was in Aquarius, Aquarius represents being humanitarian and showing the selflessness, being that universal friend. And I think what happened then is that perhaps Jordan became more interested, well, not more interested, as he still is a prolific scorer, but it would emphasize maybe being the facilitator, the passer more in crunch, especially in times where in crunch moments, and showing the trust in his teammates. Teammates are represented as far as acquaintances go, in my opinion. So I think what he did, what might have been a thing for Michael Jordan in this period, was that he may have said, okay, I'm going to start really working harder on making the teammates stronger, and this is going to figure prominently in our success. And though this might have not been a life-altering decision for Michael Jordan, it may have been a major one in terms of the Bulls' fortunes from there on out. And they wanted to show that the year before, when they won their first title in 1991, that wasn't just an aberration or fluke. So I think that may have factored in somewhat, and perhaps something else happened with Michael Jordan that I just don't know about in his personal life when he went through the Saturn return in 1992. Many of you NBA fanatics out there may have remembered that in Game 6 of the 92 NBA Finals, that in that, especially that first part of the fourth quarter, is that a lot of reserves dominated that game for the Bulls and made the Bulls pave their way to a major fourth quarter comeback and erased a prodigious deficit. And I think a lot of that could have been attributed to Jordan having that trust in the teammates, in those what I see as acquaintances, and letting them, and showing that selflessness, and letting them get some of the more of the spotlight, letting them be play the best they can, showing, and I think that shows the selfless qualities right there, which is represented by Aquarius. And Saturn in Aquarius, transiting Saturn in Aquarius, was still was conjoining his natal one. And I think one last thing I want to get before I head out on the Saturn return is that some people may wonder and ponder, well, when could I feel the effects of the Saturn return? Does it have to be in that precise position? Well, I think you could feel it maybe within 8 degrees, which I consider a conjunction to your natal Saturn. And Saturn traverses a sign on average about 2.5 years or 30 months. So you figure approximately 8 months before your exact return, it'll be within 8 degrees. So you might feel something around that time. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the Saturn Return. And stay tuned next time, where I will be continuing my series on zodiac signs on the cusp of the third house in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.